Good evening everyone, welcome to Bajirao IAS Academy, the Hindu News Analysis. Today is 11 July 2025 and today we have some very important topics for the discussion. So one by one we'll try to discuss all these important topics in a very detailed and in-depth manner, and PDF of this discussion is available in the description section and you can easily access the PDF of this lecture. And without any further delay, let's get into the discussion and let's discuss the first important topic. So this is about the recent Supreme Court's verdict on the Bihar Special Intensive Revision. And remember, we have already discussed about this Bihar's Special Intensive Revision and the Supreme Court's remarks on this Special Intensive Revision by the Election Commission of India. And Supreme Court has also talked about the 1977 judgment of Election Commission of India, because the 1977 judgment talks about the fair and fair conduct of elections and the powers of the Election Commission of India, which are not arbitrary. Right, so first understand the context of this particular topic. The context is that recently the Supreme Court has directed the Election Commission to consider Aadhaar, EPIC and ration card for the identity verification as part of the Bihar's Special Intensive Revision of the electoral rolls. And in fact, Article 324 of the Indian Constitution, so it confers certain powers to the Election Commission of India, and one such power is having an electoral roll. So therefore, in the state of Bihar, there is a special intensive revision of this electoral roll that has been taking place. So therefore, this intensive revision has been highlighting certain concerns about the exclusionary practices and reaffirming the Election Commission of India's duty to uphold inclusive democratic participation. Right, so this is the context. Now if we go deeper into this particular topic, now what are certain constitutional concerns and the identity verification with this special intensive revision of electoral rolls in the state of Bihar? And in this, the Supreme Court has emphasized that the Election Commission of India, so as I've already told you, that the Election Commission of India gets its powers from Indian Constitution under Article 324, and this Article 24 of the Indian Constitution, so it must enable the participation in the democratic process, that is participation in the elections, right? So it is a democratic process and cannot erect the procedural barriers that disenfranchise the citizens. So the Election Commission of India should not erect certain procedural barriers, and those barriers disenfranchise the already existing citizens from their rights. And the court even ruled that the special intensive revision is meant to establish the identity, not citizenship. Right, so therefore all 11 currently listed documents serve only to verify their identity and not their citizenship. So therefore the exclusion of Aadhaar is illogical. Right, so therefore recently the court has given the verdict that the special intensive revision is meant to establish the identity of a citizen but not the citizenship. Right, so all 11 currently listed documents, so they serve only to verify their identity alone, not citizenship. Right, so the court even questioned why Aadhaar used as a foundational document for obtaining others like caste certificate, and whereas those derivative documents are accepted, exposing a policy inconsistency which is existing in this process of special intensive revision of electoral rules. Now what are the practical realities which are existing and the risk of disenfranchisement as well? So while around 87% of Bihar's population So they have the Aadhaar, and only 45 to 50% are the matriculates, and less than 2% have the passports. So thereby making the current document list inaccessible for a majority number of populations. And apart from that, this special intensive revision, so it seems to reverse the constitutional jurisprudence, right? Because it has been treating all voters as a potential non-citizens unless they prove otherwise, right? So it is actually contrary to the earlier judgments of the Supreme Court as well, because the earlier judgments of the Supreme Court have rejected shifting the onus of proving citizenship onto the registered voters, right? And in fact, the current approach also risks the large scale disenfranchisement. So large scale disenfranchisement of certain sections, particularly the marginalized communities, particularly among less educated population. So all these factors have been undermining the very principle of universal adult suffrage. Now I hope you have understood what exactly is a universal suffrage. So universal suffrage means everyone is having the right to vote, without any discrimination, irrespective of race, caste, place of birth, everything, right? So therefore, universal adult franchise as a concept that has been adopted in India right after India's independence, right after the Election Commission of India came into existence, right? So therefore, in this context, we'll be understanding about the judicial oversight and the institutional accountability as well, right? So therefore, there are conflicting interpretations between the chief electoral officer in Bihar and the chief election commissioner on a document leniency, and that has led to a confusion, and it has further weakened the field level implementation of this special intensive revision process, right? So therefore, this is another major problem that came into existence. And in fact, the Supreme Court has kept the matter under the scrutiny, and it has also scheduled a further hearing. So therefore, it has stressed that timing, method, purpose of the special intensive revision will actually undergo judicial review to ensure the democratic integrity as well. And in fact, the Supreme Court's suggestion to further expand the list of identity documents, it actually gives the Election Commission of India a chance to correct its course and also ensure that the special intensive revision is inclusive and constitutionally compliant as well, right? So therefore, the Supreme Court has also a list of identity documents, so that it gives the Election Commission of India a chance to correct its course and also ensure that the special intensive revision process is inclusive and constitutionally compliant as well, and it will not disenfranchise the communities, particularly the marginalized and less educated communities in the state of Bihar, right? So here, if you look at the Election Commission of India, so Election Commission of India is a constitutional independent body that came into existence on January 25th, 1950. And it is a constitutional body, as I have already told you, and it is provided under Article 324 of the Indian Constitution and Part 15, right? So Part 15 of the Indian Constitution and Article 324 talks about the Election Commission of India. And in fact, Article 324 of the Indian Constitution, it actually vests the Election Commission of India with the superintendence, direction, control of all elections to Parliament, state legislative assemblies, and to the offices of President and Vice President uh, in the Election Commission of India, right? So it conduct elections
to the parliament, including the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha elections, and the state legislature as well, state legislature elections, the office of the president, the office of the vice president, right? So if you look at the composition of the Election Commission of India, so Election Commission of India is a multi-member body because it consists of a chief election commissioner and such a number of other election commissioners as president may from time to time decide. And after Election Commissioners Amendment Act of 1989, it has been made a multi-member body, right? So at present, the Election Commission of India consisting of the Chief Election Commissioner and two election commissioners. If you look at the appointment and service conditions, they are subjected to the provisions of any parliamentary law. The Chief Election Commissioner and other election commissioners are appointed by the President, and the conditions of service, tenure of office of the election commissioners is determined by the President by rule. Right? So there will be a fixed tenure of 6 years or up to the age of 65 years, whichever is earlier. Right? So their status, their salary, and their perks as available as the judges of the Supreme Court, and the conditions of the service shall not be varied to their disadvantage after their appointment as well. So these are the service conditions of the Chief Election Commissioner and the other election commissioners. I hope you have understood this. And next important topic is an article that has been given in the Hindu newspaper about India's youth and how can we empower India's young populations. So remember that India is a country with a huge demographic dividend. So therefore, it is important to empower India's youth to achieve the goal of Viksit Bharat by the year 2047. So Viksit Bharat means a developed India by the year 2047. So remember that we always talked about the demographic dividend. So India is a country with a huge working age population, with a huge young population. So therefore, this article is very important for your general studies paper 1 and paper 2 as well. And previously there were questions about the demographic dividend as well. Now, if you look at the context of this particular topic, UN 2025 World Population Day. So, you know, has been celebrated, and its theme has emphasized on empowering the youth and also their reproductive rights. So therefore, it has been urging countries like India with a huge young population, world's largest youth population, right? So India is a country with the largest youth population to invest in rights-based multi-sectoral strategies to realize its demographic dividend, right? So we have a huge demographic dividend, and it is important to realize the existing demographic dividend. So therefore, India need to invest in rights-based multi-sectoral strategies to realize its demographic dividend, right? So the World Population Day's theme is also a youth empowerment and even the reproductive rights of youth. Now, if you look at the youth, reproductive autonomy, and demographic dividend relationship, so there is a demographic window of opportunity for India, because what does this demographic window of opportunity actually means? Now, the existing young population will be part of the workforce. However, this will be a window because after some time, the already existing youth population will become olders, right? So it will become old population. So therefore, this window has to be properly used. So otherwise, it will be a demographic burden for India. So therefore, India as of now having 371 million youth who are in 15 to 29 years of age. So this is as per UNICEF. And in fact, this is largest population in the world. So therefore, it has been offering dividend potential of around 1 trillion in the GDP. So as per the Niti Aayog and World Bank data, right? So they have estimated that the existing youth population in India, the existing demographic dividend in India will offer a potential addition of 1 trillion in Indian GDP by the year 2030. However, there are persistent challenges in the reproductive autonomy of youth population. It has been revealed from the National Family Health Survey 5, which was conducted for a period of 2019 to 21, and it has revealed that around 23.3 percentage of child marriages and 7 percentage of teenage pregnancies nationally, with some states reporting twice the national average, and it has been indicating a deep regional disparities in reproductive autonomy, right? So there are still a high level of child marriages, particularly among the girl childs, and 7 percentage of the teenage pregnancies. So therefore, it has been indicating a deep regional disparities as well in youth empowerment. And as per the United Nations State of World Population Report of 2025, so it actually shows 36 percentage of Indian adults, they still face unintended pregnancies, while 30 percentage have unmet reproductive goals and 23% face both, signifying limited choice and agency as well. Right, so this data is very important for your mains examinations. You can quote this data while writing your answers. And even if you are giving an interview, and if you mention this data, if you are asked a question on demographic dividend, so that actually gives a good impression about the candidate, and that also give a good impression for the examiner when you write all this data in your answers. So now there are certain policy interventions and programs that have to be brought in, and that have already been taken. So for example, in the state of Rajasthan for a period of 2017 to 2022, a program called Udan project. So Udan project has been implemented. So this Udan project has actually leveraged the already existing government scholarships, awareness generation, and the contraceptive access, and 30,000 child marriages were prevented, and 15,000 teenage pregnancies were also prevented. So therefore, it has actually enabled education continuity for the already existing adolescent girls. Now, if girl child is educated, and if we are able to prevent these child marriages and teenage pregnancies, it will result in the adequate empowerment of existing youth, right? So this is how we can actually empower the existing youth, so they can educate themselves, and they can also get a right employment for themselves, and they can actually look after themselves and their family as well. So it will result in the financial empowerment of women, economic independence of the woman, and their own decision making can also be improved by such interventions, right? So this is Udan project, so that has been launched and implemented in the state of Rajasthan. And apart from that, in the state of Odisha, a similar program has been implemented. So that program is called as Advika program. So this Advika program in the state of Odisha has been launched in partnership with UNICEF and United Nations Population Fund. And this Advika program has actually declared around 11,000 villages child marriage free, and it has also stopped 950 child marriages in the year 2022. And in fact, so it has combined the adolescent empowerment with a state system strengthening. Right? So such programs will result in a lesser number of child marriages, and such programs initiatives will further enhance the understanding, communication, educating and increasing awareness among the people. Now, if we talk about the education, UNICEF data indicates that each additional year of secondary education, it reduces the likelihood of child marriage by at least 6 percentage, right? So in fact education plays a very important role, right? So how education plays a very important role? Because education increases awareness among the people, right? Or it will also play an important role to prevent the child marriages by around 6 percentage, underlining a critical role that formal education actually play in preventing the child marriages. So in states like Assam, Chhattisgarh, Odisha, child marriage is a major issue. So therefore, it is very important to address this particular problem, because generally what happens with the child marriage is that, so we have a demographic dividend, but that particular demographic dividend will not be properly used because they drop from the school, and their health would be at stake, and children would be malnourished, right? So not completely healthy. So all these factors that uh, they actually face because of the child marriages. And for the purpose of economic empowerment and achieving gender equity, so there are a program like a project Manjil that has been started in the state of Rajasthan, and it has been implemented from 2019 to 2025. And it has actually used a human centric design. And this particular project has helped around 28,000 young women complete skill training, and 1,600 have already gained the employment, and many being the first generation skilled workers in their communities as well, right? So having demographic dividend, having a huge number of a young workforce is not important, but we have to focus on education, we need to focus on healthcare, and even we should focus on skilling. So that involves upskilling and the reskilling of the existing workforce, and that is very important, right? So as part of the project Manjil that has been launched by the state of Rajasthan, so it has been using a human centered design, and that particular project has helped around 28,000 young women to complete for they complete skill training, and 16,000 have gained employment, and many being the first generation skilled workers in their communities. And if we talk about linking economic power with the reproductive agency, so financially empowered women, they show higher negotiation power in delaying marriage and childbirth, thereby directly enhancing reproductive autonomy and even the societal participation as well. However, this United Nations Population Fund, so it actually calls for a multi-sectoral investments in the contraception, education, housing, maternal care, and workplace flexibility, so that it can actually dismantle the already existing structural barriers, and it can even create an enabling environment for the youth, right? So these investments are very important for a country like India, that it has stressed on for the empowerment of its young population, so thereby realizing the potential of demographic dividend. So as we have already discussed that the demographic dividend, the young population can actually add 1 trillion US dollars to India's GDP. So therefore, in order to realize that particular potential, we need to invest in contraception, education, housing, maternal care, and workplace flexibility of the existing young population. And such innovative initiatives have to be launched in different states, and Niti Aayog and the central government can encourage states to adopt and emulate such policies. I hope you have understood this particular topic. And the next topic is the safeguarding right to vote. So we'll be understanding what is the need to safeguard the right to vote and why it is important in the context of recent Bihar's special intensive revision of electoral rolls and concerns of disenfranchisement of certain marginalized and less educated voters in this process. Now, the context is that on July 10th, the Supreme Court of India has directed the Election Commission to include Aadhaar and the electoral identity card and the ration card for Bihar's special intensive revision of their electoral rolls, thereby underscoring and underlining that the right to vote is fundamental to a republic. India is a republic, and for a republic, a right to vote is fundamental. And in fact, universal adult suffrage and identity verification in India, right? So, as I've already discussed what exactly is a universal adult suffrage, right? So, if we talk about the universal adult suffrage, so everyone having the right to vote irrespective of their race, caste, sex, and place of birth, right? So this universal adult suffrage, so it has been embedded via article 326 of the Indian Constitution, and it is operationalized through the Representation of People Act of 1950 and Representation of People Act of 1951. And in fact, the Election Commission, so it is conferred with certain powers under Article 324 of the Indian Constitution. So the Election Commission holds the administrative autonomy to prepare and also revise the electoral rolls periodically. However, Section 21 of the Representation of People Act 1950 empowers the Election Commission to correct the inaccuracies which are existing in the electoral rolls, so thereby ensuring the electoral integrity by removing the inaccuracies which are existing in the electoral rolls. And in fact, the Election Commission of India overcame the literacy barriers by introducing the election symbols, because India is a country which is having a higher levels of illiteracy. So because of this illiteracy, in order to easily identify the candidates and the political parties, it has introduced the symbols. And introduction of symbols has resulted in certain literacy barriers have easily overcome, thereby enabling nearly 173 million early voters to participate in this election process. Now, what are the previous Supreme Court rulings on this? So these Supreme Court rulings are also very important. You can quote these rulings in your interview as well as in your mains answers. So it will give a good impression about your answers. In Kuldeep Nair versus Union of India 2006 case, the Supreme Court has held that right to vote is a statutory right and it is not a fundamental right. And in Rajbala case 2016, the Supreme Court has held that minority bench of the Supreme Court called it constitutional right, but Kuldeep Nair remains binding. Right? So in Rajbala case, the Supreme Court has held that it is a statutory right and it is also a constitutional right, but this is not a fundamental right. In Anup Baranwal 2023 case, the Supreme Court has again reaffirmed the Kuldeep Nair case. So it says that the right to vote is a statutory right and it is not a fundamental right. And the Supreme Court has dissents cited. It is in Article 19(1) Clause A and Article 21 of the Indian Constitution. And if we talk about the demographic imperative of it, so the Supreme Court, however, emphasized that even statutory right voting remains central to the democracy's sustenance. And it is a very important fact for any democracy to sustain successfully. Voting is fundamental and it is central. Now, what are the key issues in Bihar's special intensive revision exercise? So, in this, if you look at our key issues in Bihar's special intensive revision exercise, so if you look at the Election Commission mandated document list, only 11 identity proofs were initially accepted for this special intensive revision of electoral rolls, excluding widely held documents such as Aadhaar. So therefore, it has led to disenfranchisement risk of marginalized and less educated voters. And the recent judgment, the Supreme Court has directed the Election Commission to include Aadhaar and the electoral photo identity card and the ration card because identity matters, not the citizenship. And these are used to obtain other proofs like even the caste certificate as well. And over the inclusion concerns, removing or falling or failing to add eligible voters actually undermines one person, one vote. Similarly, allowing ineligible entries distorts the representation, and this is how the Supreme Court has actually interpreted this. And if we talk about the way forward for this, there is a need to ensure inclusive and identity verification. And as part of this, a court's move to include Aadhaar and ration card removes the artificial entry barriers, aligning the special intensive revision with the constitutional equality and universal suffrage. And the Election Commission should mobilize a field level outreach, public awareness, thereby enabling citizens to verify and update their entries proactively. And in fact, address the ineligible inclusions efficiently without disenfranchising the legitimate voters. And in this context, it is also very important to distinguish between the material errors and minor anomalies as per Section 21 of the Representation of the People Act for a fair elections or for a fair revision of the electoral rolls in the state of Bihar. And Supreme Court's scrutiny of these special intensive revisions timing and conduct must continue to ensure that the electoral reforms further strengthen the democratic process and not limit the participation and not disenfranchising the communities. So therefore, to resolve a statutory constitutional ambiguity, Parliament can clarify the legal status of the right to vote and codify acceptable identity documents in alignment with the evolving needs as well. So this should be the way forward for this, right? So there is a role for the Parliament, and the timing and the conduct of the special intensive revision is aligned with the electoral reforms, and that would further strengthen the democracy. And there is a need to address the ineligible inclusions much more efficiently. That should not compromise, that should not result in disfranchising the legitimate voters. And election commission should also mobilize field level outreach and public awareness as well. And the next important topic is a TB deaths audit and how it will result in uh, elimination of TB. So what is the context, in which context it has been asked? So the context is that Dr. Soumya Swaminathan, so she is a principal advisor to the National TB Elimination Program. So she recently proposed adopting district level TB death audit, so which is similar to the maternal death reviews, and that will help reduce the TB mortality and achieving India's TB elimination goals. Now, if you look at the TB burden that India has, so India actually accounts for world's highest number of TB cases, right? So this is the first fact that India is having the world's highest number of TB cases. So, as per India TB report 2024, so TB mortality has declined from 35 per 1 lakh in 2015 to 22 per 1 lakh currently, right? So, this is the TB mortality that India has as of now. And in fact, as part of the Sustainable Development Goal, India aims to eliminate TB by the year 2025, 5 years ahead of UN Sustainable Development Goals target of 2030. Now, what is a tuberculosis? Right? So, we need to understand tuberculosis. So, tuberculosis is a highly contagious bacterial disease. Contagious in the sense that it spreads from one person to another person. So, therefore, it is highly contagious and it is a bacterial disease. And tuberculosis primarily affects lungs, and it is caused by a bacterium called Mycobacterium tuberculosis. So, how tuberculosis spreads? So, it spreads through airborne droplets which are expelled when an infected individual either coughs or sneezes. And in fact, TB can even affect other organs, and it leads to various forms of extrapulmonary TB as well. So I hope you have understood what exactly is a tuberculosis and some data about tuberculosis in India. So we have a goal of eliminating TB by the year 2025, so which is 5 years ahead of the UN Sustainable Development Goals target by 2030. And if you talk about TB death audit proposal, so this is actually modeled on the maternal death audits, and it has been proposed to be led by district collectors with participation from the public health departments or the medical colleges. And if we talk about the objective of it, so identify the systematic gaps in service delivery and the socio-economic causes behind the TB mortality in India. Now, what are the key programs and interventions as part of eliminating TB? Right? So, Ministry of Health has launched a national TB elimination program that has aimed to eliminate TB by the year 2025, 5 years ahead of the Sustainable Development Goals 2030. And Nikshaya Mitra Yojana has also been launched, and it aims to provide nutrition and financial support to the existing TB patients. And there is a direct benefit transfer scheme as well. So, as part of the direct benefit transfer scheme, so those individuals who are affected with the tuberculosis, a monthly amount of 1,000 rupees will be provided for their nutrition and the treatment adherence as well. So earlier this amount was 500 rupees and it has been increased to 1,000 rupees to encourage nutrition and also the treatment adherence as well, so that we can regularly get the treatment. And 100-day TB elimination campaign has also been launched, and it focuses on expanding the upfront molecular diagnostics, and it has been handled by X-ray screening with artificial intelligence algorithms. Now there are certain emerging best practices as well, such as portable handheld X-rays with AI integration, boosted case notification by 10 to 12% in states like in places like Mumbai, and upfront molecular testing. So this has further enhanced the early detection and drug resistance profiling, and nutrition-based protection, which is Rations trial. So that has demonstrated 50% reduction in secondary TB infections through the nutrition support as well. Right? So these are some emerging best practices which are followed in different regions across India, and these are the key programs which aimed at eliminating TB in India. So that's all in this lecture, and thank you so much. So if you like our lecture, please subscribe our YouTube channel and also hit the like button. Thank you.